So, speaking of guilt by association or putting people into groups based on characteristics, mutable and immutable, here's another named tweet. It's called Collected Souls, and it goes with another tweet called Collective Soul. So, recently I released a tweet and video called Grouping Thoughts. Definitely check that out on my channel. And we talked in there about groupthink and collectivism and putting people into a box, putting them into a postmodern box where they're arbitrarily defined to be certain parts of their personality or certain parts of their immutable characteristics. Oh, they're male, therefore, they're female, therefore, they're this skin tone, they're that skin tone, they're this hobby or occupation or religion or that, and we go and move them and say, well, if this equals this, then therefore this. And I try to stay away from that sort of blanket statement thinking. It is enticing at times to put people into a box and to define them. We all do it. It's something we all do. But it's sort of a bad habit, in my opinion. But we're going to go through these tweets talking about collectivism. And it's kind of an interesting tweet because here we're going to go down a list that goes from A to N, like the alphabet. And I'm not going to say those, but they're in there. They're in the tweet, so check it out on Twitter. But each of them is a little phrase or command even. So we'll start with this one here. Collective soul. Collective soul. When your voice isn't strong enough to stand alone on individual merits, you're left with a few options. A. Conform to the collective. B. Join the cult. C. Assimilate into the hive mind. D. Think with the group. E. Party with the partisans. Or try. Try again. And then I continue down into the next tweet, Collected Souls, which starts with F, follow followers. And I'll just continue without using the alphabet because it's a little grating to me. G. G. Merge with minions. Relish the religion. Park in the pack. Dedicate to the dogma. Identify with identitarians. Camp in collectivism. Tie yourself to the team. Surrender sovereignty. Or stand alone. Think for yourself. So, I mean, there's not too much to say about this, but I'm going to say a lot anyway. So when your voice isn't strong enough to stand alone on individual merits, you're left with a few options. So this talks about how there's this sense in the world of individualism versus collectivism, in which some would say that individuals, there's a bit of a privilege almost to individuals because they're more able to stand alone. Their ideas, whoever they are, whatever they're doing, they're able to stand alone. And they wouldn't need to team up with anybody else. They wouldn't need any help because they're so, they have the skills, they have the talent, they have the privileges, they have whatever it might be that they have that allows them to stand alone. And then you have collectives, which is like when you have a union, people come together, collective bargaining, people come in, and they go ahead, and they have more power in numbers, more strength in numbers. So I'm not making any judgment about people that prefer the group, prefer to follow along, or those that prefer to be more individualistic. There is no better way. It's rather subjective, and whatever floats your boat is excellent, fine. But I do think that when your voice isn't strong enough to stand alone, when you don't have the option to stand alone, yeah, you can conform to the collective. You can join the cult. You can look for, again, it's the interesting thing about collectives and cults and groups is that while you'd think that it would be more, democratic, oh, we have a bunch of people here, there always has to be someone or a bureau or committee of people that rise to the top. They rise to the top. There's always somebody, just like in the Star Trek, and they have the Borg Queen at the top of the collective. There's always somebody that ends up leading everybody, and they're like the cult leader. They're the hive mind, the head of the hive mind. There has to be a controller, and this is happening, of course, in all of our countries across the world too. We might have different systems. We have Congress, we have Parliament, we have all these different things. We all vote. There's these parties. In Israel, I was talking with my friend Mosher recently about Israel and how they have parties that are largely religious, and then they have more secular parties. And ultimately, though, it all comes down to, well, we need one guy. We need one man or woman to get behind at the end. And the parties have to form a coalition and come in, and eventually they do have to fall right in line. All these different groups fall right in line with, in this case, Bibi Netanyahu. So, it's an interesting thing. Ultimately, it does always come down again to an individual. Now, I know you might have a committee, you might have a bureau, you might have a bunch of people that decide things for the group, and that makes sense. But there's typically a chairman or a chairwoman, and it seems to be just the way it is. It just ultimately does come down to one point. You assimilate into the hive mind, think with the group, like groupthink. Like groupthink. Because this is where consensus comes in. When you think with the group, you're going with the consensus. You're sticking with, well, how can millions of people, how can this big group be wrong? I'm not going to think too individually. I'm going to make, of course, a lot of my own decisions. Like, I don't like to get into what they call third-person effect, which assumes that, you know what others are thinking, and you know that others don't know as much as you do, or you know what they don't know. To me, that is a fool's errand. It's what Scott Adams would call loserthink. And yet, so many of us, depending on the subject, depending on who we trust, who has credentials, the nature, the context of the situation, a lot of us do tend to, on a contextual basis, we do tend to fall in sometimes with the group, think with the group. Because it's easier. That's why. It's easier. Don't have to think. Just, think about a little bit of it. But in general, just focus on other things, and for that one piece, that one subject, that one element of your life, hey, just go with the group, go with the consensus. How could they be wrong? Hey, if it goes bad, misery loves company. I'll have company. Party with the partisans. Yeah, people that take either one side or the other are partisans. In any given continuum, any given situation. So you party up with the partisans. May it be Democrat or Republican. If you're a United States viewer of this channel, Jeff Tidwell's channel, you might think of it that way. Now they have the Tories in the UK, and the Labour Party and all the other ones. But of course, I like to leave a message of hope. You can try again. Try again. If your voice isn't strong enough to stand on its own merits, and you need a backing band, you need a consensus with other people to feel like your voice is strong enough to be out there, and if you feel that your points are strong enough, your positions are strong enough, you can always go back to the drawing board. Yeah, we can always go back to the drawing board. I have. My friends have. My family, everyone I know has learned over time that, we are stronger than we know. We are stronger inside than we really understand, we ever learn. And that, we might think that our opinions or our viewpoints are insignificant. But if everybody thought like that, nobody would ever get anything done. No one would have any confidence. So we do have to, look at our individual merits and say, hey, it's worth it. It's worth taking the risk of looking a certain way, or, we have to learn how to use our ego as a tool. Of course, check out my video, You Are Not Your Ego, for more information on that. But we have to use our ego as a tool and say, hey, maybe some of us might not have the cognitive abilities. Some of us might not have the smarts or the education, the privileges, as some would say, to accomplish more, to overcome. But I don't like to think negatively like that. I don't like to think, with pessimism. I prefer optimism. I like to say, hey, try again. You failed, try again. And then collected souls. We're going to go through these ones as well. Followers. So yeah, if you're about to join a big group of people and you want to get, you're going to have to follow behind the followers. Get in line behind the followers. Following the leader, the Pied Piper. Merge with minions. Fans of the Despicable Me movies, shout out to you. Relish the religion. You want to, again now, religion. Finally, religion makes its appearance. Religion appeared. Where are my Pokeballs? So, religion, of course, brings order, purpose, meaning, moral virtue, universal truth to our lives. And then if you don't have traditional religion, whether you're secular, non-secular, well, in this case you would be secular if you didn't have traditional religion or didn't believe, as I'm agnostic, you might have a modern religion, okay? And that applies here as well. Check out my video, Modern Religions for Postmodern Prophets, on BitChute and YouTube. So you would relish the religion. You would join in this group of people that are like-minded, and they have a dogma. They have a specific code, just like a modern religion. We have traditional religions, Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, Judaism, and so forth. I can go on and on. I want to mention a couple here. But you'd relish it. You'd relish the collective, how we all come together and we all have the same belief system. We all have the same views in many ways, not entirely, of course, but we do all believe in the same God, the same force. And, yeah, it's another collection of people. We park in the pack, and we dedicate to the dogma. Like I just said about religion, you dedicate to the dogma. You stick to the code, what holds your life together in many ways, holds your moral system together. That would be dedicating to the dogma. Sticking to the word that may be in the Bible, the Holy Bible, or somewhere else, maybe in the Quran, wherever it might be. You would dedicate to the dogma. You join this collective thought process where everybody is, we all have our own individual thoughts and feelings and opinions and values, but these are shared values. In a collective, you have shared values. It's what brings the collective together. May you be, a part of a religion, or if you're supporting a political figure or whoever it might be, you're part of a big group. And if you dedicate to the dogma, it's harder to be swayed away from the group, from the mindset, from the hive mind. But of course, I'm not. Let's just be clear. We're about 10 minutes into this tweet here. Obviously, I don't like to appeal to third-person effect, and I don't want to say that people are mindless drones. I kind of hate that a little bit, to be clear. But to be part of the collective, you do have to. It's like do as the Romans do. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. You identify with identitarians. So identitarians being people that that basically form groups based on identity, and that's what this would be. You'd have your identity, may it be something that's mutable, like a religion, or immutable, like you might have, we do in our culture, in our society, we do have situations where we put people together different. We have the boys with the boys, we have the girls with the girls, we have different groups that are put together. And again, this isn't always positive or a negative, but for any situation. But identitarianism, again, is not usually associated with positive. It's more associated with negative, because a lot of people are identitarians and they use this ideology against other people. They separate people out and then they discriminate against them. So identitarianism is generally viewed as pejorative. So it's kind of funny to say identify with identitarians. It's a little tiny bit edgy, and maybe a little bit of a poke at people that think more collectively, that kind of eschew individualism a bit. So the next one here is camp in collectivism. Well, seems to be what we're doing right here in this video. Tie yourself to the team. Yep. So like in the world of politics and in sports, this is another case where we have people put into groups, and you're with the team. You're with the side. It's red versus blue. It's however you'd like to characterize it. But you tie yourself to the team. You would be collected within this team, and however you want to respond to other teams out there, and that's your discretion. Your mileage may vary, but you're tying yourself to the team, and this is where I think this is something that I think is a little more poignant. Where I say here, and it's the last one. It's letter N. Surrender sovereignty. So surrender sovereignty. Just let others in. Let others in to your thought process, to your belief system, to how you run your life, to how you think. Don't go your own way. Surrender sovereignty and spread. Be multicultural in all things. May it be thought, vision, or however you'd like to proceed. Surrendering your sovereignty, opening up in a way that, again, could be positive or negative or relatively neutral. It's not necessarily any one way or another. But you would be, of course, kind of giving up a bit of yourself, giving up a bit of your boundary, and effectively saying, I'm selfless. I'm selfless. I am now part of the greater group. I'm part of this greater thing, this bigger thing that isn't just one person, but it may be 10 people or 100 people or 1,000. So surrendering sovereignty is pretty powerful. Or you could stand alone. think for yourself. And that is the thrust of this channel. That is the advocacy of this channel. I do advise, to think for yourself, to get into a mindset where I'm working as hard as I can to think for myself. Sometimes I feel like I'm going up against, sometimes it feels like you're going up against when other people, because we are, of course, brainwashed by ourselves and others every minute of every single day. We're conditioned. My friend didn't like that I used the term hypnotized. It might not be perfectly accurate if one were to get pedantic about the usage of words, but we are hypnotized in a way by other people every minute of every day, and how messaging gets across to us, our self-messages. But again, thinking for yourself, I think that it is more important than ever before, because we do live in a more confusing, a larger, more complex, complicated, confusing world. And people, in that chaos, sometimes there are people out there, some of us, that wish to find order, to find something to grab onto. And there'll be somebody there that knows that we're looking for that knows that we need purpose, we need something. And they're there to provide it. And these are the people that they could be providing a job, or they could be saying, hey, I'm a motivational speaker. Or, in the context of collectives, they could be a cult leader or somebody else that's there to collect the lost souls, right? Collected souls. Collect people and give them that, what's missing in their self. So when we think for ourselves, I advocate for doubling down on the self, and getting more and more independently minded. And of course, not, listening to subject matter experts, of course, and not fully eschewing groups. It's okay to be part of a group. There's nothing wrong with it. But I think that it helps to have a basis of independent thought and individual agency before continuing into something where people are going to try to dictate what you do based on a dogma or a code or a belief system, an ideology, or a set of goals that they want to persuade and to act towards. So that's that tweet right there.